right, ready to go. All right. So it's a pleasure, it's an honor, and it's incredible. The title of the talk, God at Work, obviously has two different meanings. You could read two different meanings into it, and it's very telling for me because I literally work at the Archdiocese, so it's God at my work, but it's really God working in me, and that's what this talk is going to really be about. The project itself is an incredible experience, the most amazing experience I've ever had in construction, in building a building. It's just been an incredible story that I enjoy sharing. But literally, I had no idea that I would be asked to step into the role of president when I was asked to do this talk about 3 months ago, and I said, I'll do it, but why don't we do it the week of Guadalupe? And so we looked at it's the Guardia, it's the Immaculada, I don't know if we can do it. And lo and behold, December 9th, we'll do it, boom, I'm in. I had no idea I forgot it was the feast day I didn't think it was going to be the feast day of Juan Diego. And throughout this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about that because in this experience, I really felt like Juan Diego. And I'm going to share why that is. So again, just the providence of God, God's hand, God at work. His thread is so obvious when you know how to look for it, right? And that's part of the talk. It's part of something I try to teach my son. It's like if you understand God is working and you look, you'll see it. But half of the world goes through life without understanding God is working in them, and it's just things are coincidences. So in our house, we say God incidences. They're not coincidences. This is God working in our lives. So Juan Diego, pray for us. So who am I? So David Prada. I was born and raised in Miami. My father, Jaime Prada, is sitting right there. I'm his son. I'm a brother. I had two brothers. I have one brother now. I have my lovely wife, Liz, my son, Jaime, who's named after my brother, and by coincidence, my dad as well, and my mom, who is going to pull the story full circle by the time I'm done. My trajectory as an architect, I graduated from public high school. I'm not Belen, and I'm not Columbus. So we are actually now branching Manny beyond Columbus. Now we got public school represented. I'm Eagle, Southwest Eagles. But I ended up, I was a musician. I am a musician, and I ended up in high school not being the best student. My father said there's no way you're ever going to go away to school because you need to stay here where I can see what you're doing. But I went to Miami-Dade College. I did really, really well. I discovered my love for architecture, and I got straight A's. I got accepted to Cornell University after 2 years in Miami-Dade. And my father and mother gave me the gift of sending me to Cornell. And I did 4 years at Cornell, so I did 6 years total to get my bachelor's. Came back to Miami. I thought I was going to be a star architect. I wanted to work for Arquitectonica. I wanted to work for these big firms. But again, God at work. As I would interview for these big design firms, because I felt pretty strong in my design skills, they would offer me a job. 1994, when I graduated, wasn't a great economic year, and they would say, you could come work for us, but we can't pay you. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to get married. And because of my father and his friend, and again, the importance of family, I fell into a firm called Brown & Brown. And one of the things you'll see, all of my experiences at work without my plan, I've been always within the embrace of a religious supervisor, boss. Bill Brown, incredibly active in the church. And so him and I would go to meetings and travel from here to Broward, and we'd be talking encyclicals and things in the car. So God has been keeping me close. And so I did that for 15 years, specialized in institutional work, a lot of schools, and some archdiocesan work. The economy turned a little south in 2008, as you guys remember. At that point, the firm had been sold, and I was then was not happy. I was managing a big book of business in Broward, but I was losing control of paying my consultants, and so I got a call from Guillermo Garcia Tuñón to see if I'd be interested in coming to work for Lemartec. They are a true design build firm. Guillermo is the engineer. Jose, his brother, is the contractor. And so Guillermo wanted me to come in to help, support him in the design side so that they don't lose their money and their assets during construction. So I went in there loving it, and I was doing construction. So I got into construction. And, here I am thinking, this is all about me. I've got my architecture experience, 15 years. Now I'm going to do construction, and then I'm going to go rule the world. At that experience in Le Martec, I get introduced to Our Lady of Guadalupe. Our Lady of Guadalupe is a mission church from Blessed Trinity in Miami Springs. And they were struggling in the Doral area to find a location for their church. So the Archdiocese made a decision before my time to get a piece of the land, which I'll show in a minute, of the cemetery and give it to them because the land in Doral was so expensive. When I was with Le Martec, I started working on a project that was too small. We didn't realize it, but there was a budget, right? And the Archdiocese, Archbishop Wensky, Sister Elizabeth, budget is king. You gotta come in under budget. Everything's got to be organized. And a parish cannot build unless it has the money. Too many parishes got into problems with debt before, and the debt was just killing and choking the parishes. When Archbishop Wensky and Sister Elizabeth there have been a lot of forgiveness of debt for a lot of parishes. So they were very cautious about how to do that. We begin the project for a church of maybe 300 or 400 people at the site, and that was with Le Martec. And I get a call from the Archdiocese. A Jewish gentleman worked at the Archdiocese, head of building and properties. He was a finance guy. They lost their building guy. They put a finance guy in the building office. Was not comfortable at all in that role. And I get a call from him one day. I don't really know him. I was working in Guadalupe, working on some small things, and he says, "Hey, I want to have lunch with you. I want to meet with you." And I go, "I don't even know." There wasn't a relationship like a personal relationship. It was a business relationship. And I said, "Man, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe he's going to, correct me. I did something. What does this guy want to talk to me about?" So I go to have lunch with him, and he goes, "David, I've seen how you are with the priests and stuff. I think you look like you're maybe religious. I think you'd be great for this job. I'm moving to Denver, Colorado. I think you'd be great in the Archdiocese of Miami." And I go, "Wow, I'm working with Le Martec. I'm very happy." But I go to lunch and I tell him, I'm always open. Again, the Ignatian way, discernment. I'll listen. I'm always open to listen. So I went to have lunch with him. He introduced me to the CFO. He introduced me to Sister Elizabeth. I gave him my credentials and waited, and they offered me the job. And when they offered me the job, I take my wife and I take a weekend at the beach to go ahead and figure out what we're going to do. And I spend a peaceful weekend in consolation doing the discernment process of St. Ignatius. And of course, it gives me the result to go. I go back to the office with Guillermo, Father Willie's father, and I sit down. Well, I have my resignation letter in my pocket, and he calls me to the office. And I walk into his office. We're going to meet, and he tells me, "Hey, I got some news. Guadalupe has been stopped. The project is stopped, and we're about to break ground." And I'm like, "I've got this." I didn't know what was going on because I wasn't working there yet. But the office is in turmoil. The project is stopping, and here I am with my letter to go to the Archdiocese. I sit with Guillermo. I tell him, "Hey, I just so you know, I made a decision. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go to the Archdiocese," and I did the discernment process of St. Ignatius, and of course his son is Jesuit. So he goes, "David, I did the same process, and it says you need to stay." And I go, "Guillo, it doesn't work that way, Guillo. No, it gave me that I have to go." He goes, "No, but I did the process, and you need to stay." I go, I can't stay." Obviously ethically, I said, I told the Archdiocese I don't want to know anything about it till I move. I gave him, my 2 weeks, and I stayed, and it was a tough transition. But now I see it was the right time. But again, God put me in a place, a spiritual family life, supportive of the Catholic faith. So I was always surrounded in that environment. So I moved to the Archdiocese, and the first thing they tell me is, "David, here's your ticket. You got to go to Mexico City." And I go, "Mexico City? I've never been to Mexico. I'm going to get kidnapped. I'm going to get murdered. What are you talking about? I got to go to Mexico City." They're like, "Father Mago has this gentleman that is going to, wants to give a sizable amount of money, and, there's some strings attached to it with a design, and you need to go see if we can build it, can't build it." So I find myself on a plane to Mexico City, and as I'm leaving, one of my best friends tells me, "Hey, Dave, where are you going? Mexico City. Where are you going to go? I'm going to meet this guy, Patricio Slim." He goes, "Slim?" He goes, "You know who that is?" I go, "No, like who?" He was like, "That's the richest guy in the world." And back in 2012, he was number one. He was the richest guy. And I go, "Nah, Bill Gates is the richest guy in the world." He goes, "No. Look in the Forbes. Slim is the richest guy." So I'm going to fly to Mexico City. I arrive at 11 o'clock. I think I'm going to get mugged. But I'm fine. God protects me. I'm there. And I'm there to meet about this beautiful project. But before I go on, and here's some photos, like that's the Guadalupe project with the Archbishop and Father Vigoa and Father Mago and Father Marino, just kind of showing them things. And it's just kind of an interesting, relationship between the Archbishop and myself. He's really a great guy. He's very, you guys have met him. He's very easy to get along with and very supportive. But before I switch screens, it's the cannonball moments. So work is great, if you can have a great work life, but if you don't have what the Agrupación teaches, you are missing something. And I had two cannonball moments. The first one, that's me, the little guy, and that's my brother, Jimmy, Jaime. He was 17 in that picture. He'd be dead in a year. He would die in a car accident. Coming back, he was studying medicine in the University of South Florida back in 1980. I was 10, and he was 18. And driving back from Tampa on Highway 27, there was no, alligator alley like it is now. There was a road, the wheel got off and overcompensated and an accident. And I saw my family's foundation, shake. And I go, wow. And as a 10-year-old, I don't kind of know what's going on. I'm just watching. But what I realized is that my parents survived because of something. And what I remember is go to St. Brendan every Sunday, and my mom then would cry after every communion. She'd go to communion, just cry, and I would just watch her. Like, what is she? She was wrestling, like Jacob wrestled the angel. She was wrestling with God, right? So that was a pivotal moment. My father becomes agrupado just after that. Carlos Garcia, who was here earlier, is not here, invited my dad to a spiritual exercises. My dad goes to spiritual exercises. My dad becomes agrupado, I think, in 87. So 7 years later, my dad's going through his own process of dealing with the loss. And then 3 years ago, I had my own moment where I had a brain bleed, and I was from pouring champagne to being in a CAT scan and having an angiogram within 2 hours because they thought I'd had an aneurysm. Again, shaking of foundations were happening. So what I realized, after my dad became agrupado and I became exposed to the agrupación, I met that man up there, Father Llorente, who's obviously everybody, hopefully, if you haven't met him, I'm sorry for you. But, we have just an amazing influence in my conversion, my father's conversion, my wife's conversion, my mother's conversion. But I learned about these things, the three pillars. What Marty's doing back there today, I was doing with Marty and with Aledo. And, we were learning encyclicals. We were learning the importance of the three pillars. And it's not about balance. You hear a lot in the world about balance. You hear about balance. It's not balance. St. Ignatius says order. Not everything is balanced equal. It's about order. You have to order things. What's important is important. What's not is not. And so I learned that in the spiritual exercises. The spiritual exercises and the three-legged stool became a big part of my life. And I loved it as an architect because everything that you read in the Bible, Jesus uses the metaphors of the building and the collapse of the sinking sand and the solid rock. And, what a fool if you don't build on rock. So I knew I wanted to build on rock. I knew that's what got my mom and my dad through that tragedy, was that their foundation was rock. And so, I watched my dad, and I saw that he was an agrupado, and Llorente was the rock, and so I was attracted to it. I came with Roger Plasencia. Roger and I went to our first retreat together with Father Llorente, and I discovered, these moments, the spiritual exercises, the principle and foundation, which you all know. It's so simple. If you read it, man is created to praise, serve, and reverence God, and by so save your soul. But then he just gives you really practical information. This is what it means. It's all about equilibrium between God, man, and creatures, the order of those. creatures are good. There's nothing wrong with any creatures. Like he's not this prude that is like the world is bad. He's like, no, the world is good, but tanto cuanto, right? So I began to learn that terminology. And indifference, but not the negative indifference. Indifference to not preferring health to sickness when I was laying in the ICU for 16 days. When you wake up in the hospital at 4 in the morning because you lose your cycle, and you're just looking at I'm looking at a clock like that, thinking, what am I doing here? Like, am I dying? Am I living? What am I gonna have? It's indifference as long as I'm praising and serving God. So with that, I basically realized, and Llorente would say, nobody can have a real experience in the spiritual exercises and not leave changed. If you leave here in the spiritual exercises and you go back to the life you had, you didn't get it. And he said, if you get it, you have no other reaction but to serve, because you realize that what's been done for you by Christ, you can do nothing but serve. And he used the example, I'll never forget, I used it this weekend. He used the example of the hermano de Recate, that there was a guy in Hermano Recate who was in a raft. He gets found by one of the hermanos de Recate in the plane. They save his life. The first thing he says is, I want to do what they're doing. They've done so much for me. And he went up and did that to save his brothers. So I leave, and this guy didn't look like that back then. His name was Neil. He was a lawyer in Miami. He was one of the group with me, Marty, in 1994 or 5. And he was hanging out, and we'd meet every Wednesday, and we'd talk. And one day he asked me, hey, Dave, can you cover for me? I teach at Corpus Christi, and I'm going to be out of town. Can you cover for me a class? I go, I'm not a teacher. I'm an architect. I don't teach. My wife's a teacher. My wife was like, I teach 5 days a week. Don't put another 6 day on me. It's too much. I said, all right. So I told Neil, I go, you know what? Let's go. I'll go. Like, Llorente, go, adelante. So I went, and I meet the female Llorente. If you haven't met the female version of Father Llorente, she's standing right there between me and my wife. Her name is Sister Carmen. She's from Andalusia. She's at Corpus Christi every Saturday. Still, 95, and she goes every Saturday, and she runs the program because 95 means nothing to me. She's a ball of energy. She still drives. I met her, and she, just like Llorente would do, she grabbed me, and she hasn't let me go. That was 1994. I've been teaching since 1994 at Corpus Christi, and all because this guy asked me to cover one class. And that's been my apostolado for the last 30 years. But through that, I then begin to get open to, the beauty of serving those that are in need. And then playing music. I'm a drummer. When I was in high school, it was to get the girl. I got the girl. So then I was, the drummer, cool. I wanted to be a rock star. That didn't happen. But now I am able to play drums at Mass, and I play for the Lord. I'm able to. This weekend I played the clave. How many of you knew you could do the himno to just a clave? We don't need a piano. I got the clave. That's it. That's all we need. So anywhere the talents you get, and especially if you don't know, and that's the beauty of this for me, is that I didn't know I had this talent of teaching until I did it, right? So you have to be open, and you have to go for it, and the apostolate will open you up to different things. But the most important thing that I heard and learned was that in the commissioning of the disciples, when Christ ascends, he's very clear. The apostles are like, we got it made. Jesus fixed the world. Like, we're here. Let's do it. Like, you've resurrected. Do it. Like, you can change everything in the moment. And Christ says, you guys do it. I've got to go. I'm sending you the Holy Spirit. But if you don't do it, it dies. So if we don't do the agrupación, if we don't teach them to observe all I have commanded. So for me, the ability to teach at Corpus Christi is like an easy way to do what Christ asked us to do. We are all told to teach. So any opportunity I get to teach, that's my class in Corpus Christi. And just all hundreds and hundreds of students that now I see them working, and it's just amazing. All of that then led me to, all of that formation then led me within the archdiocese to back to this plane ride to Mexico to meet with Carlos Slim, Patricio Slim. I end up in Mexico City. I go to his office, And it's very interesting because obviously kidnappings are big. He's got his bodyguards all around. We go in. Obviously, we have been checked out, and we're sitting at the first business meeting. And the idea is to tell him, look, you can't. The building that they were going to do, that there was this dream project that was unfeasible to build. Respectfully telling him, you have, respecting his money. Actually, I said, you're going to put this much money in. That project's going to be at least 3 times that amount of money. And so we want to make sure that we can do something, and very respectfully with Father Mago, with me. He understood, and we were able to guide the project into what I did was I told Father Mago I wanted to do a competition. As an architect, I realized that every architect would be drooling over this project. The location right on the turnpike, the visibility of it, a church. Every architect dreams of doing a church. Like I could do schools all day, I could do hospital, but to do a church where God and man meet, where the divine meets the mundane, that's where every architect dreams. That's a dream project. So I told Father Mago, they had spent a lot of money already on that other church. They had spent a lot of money on developing plans they never built. I said, we'll put out an RFP for a competition. We'll invite a design build. And through God had trained me for 15 years in architecture. He had trained me for 5 in design build. And then I took all this knowledge and I put it to his service. And so I said, we'll do a design build competition. Basically, you don't put a penny out. These firms, if they really want it, they'll put together their best foot to win the project. And then I told Father Mago, the best part is you don't have to worry about the dollars, because once there's a GMP, it's now the contractor's job to control the architect so that they don't over-design or go crazy. We had enough experience to be able to do that because we knew what the building specs would be. So we end up doing the design competition, and there were 3 firms that went for it. The firm that won it was a firm that nobody expected would win, but the partner, very Catholic and very humble, put together this design that I'll show in a minute, where the project engaged the site. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about, the way the spine comes out. Just an incredible design that everybody in the committee just knew automatically when we saw the 3 entries, the three submittals, that this was the one that the Holy Spirit wanted.
Who was in the committee?
So the committee was made up of Father Mago, Father Vigoa, because our Father Vigoa is the director of Office of Worship. So every church project we do, Father Vigoa has to make sure it's liturgically correct. He had Barbara Romani, who is a pillar at Guadalupe, and a couple of other parishioners. You don't want it to be too big because the saying, a camel is a horse designed by committee, right? So we wanted to have just enough people, so we didn't want to get a camel. And so it was a small committee, but it was big enough that the parish felt ownership of it, right? Sister Elizabeth was in the committee. We had some people from the archdiocese, but we selected the winner, and the design started, and we all went to Mexico again. Father Mago was very clear, and as a spiritual guide, we need to go visit Our Lady. And this is where it'll start coming full circle with my mom, because my mom had an experience with Our Lady of Guadalupe that I'll describe in a couple minutes. But being in the Mexico City, being in the Basilica, seeing the devotion, seeing the women on their knees with their newborn babies going miles, the sidewalks in Mexico City, because they're so rough, in the middle they put like an aisle of marble so that they don't scrape their knees going up to the Basilica. But for me, it was all new. Like, I knew about the Virgen de la Caridad. I knew but I knew a little bit about her. They found her in the water. I didn't know anything about Guadalupe. I didn't know anything about Juan Diego. I didn't know anything about the tilma. I knew that the image was this really cool image, but I didn't know that the image was miraculously imprinted, that this is the only physical sign that God has ever left touched with his own finger, that there's no paint strokes, the colors are not impregnating the cactus fiber that should have dissolved 500 years ago, or it would not have lasted the 500 years that they did. All of these things I had no idea about. So when you go to the Basilica and you see that image, it's literally a miracle. There was a bomb that got set off in front of it, didn't destroy it. NASA took it to study it, and then they were bringing it back, and some other scientists dropped acid on it, didn't destroy it. Just the miracles of just the image were eye-opening for me, and I was just very taken by it. And I started to research and learn about the story every time I'd go. But again, the idea that Christ and his Father are painting the image is very true. Because when the Virgin puts the images, the roses into his tilma, what ends up is the image that you can go to Mexico today and see. But again, as we're going through the project, we knew the form of the building, and we knew we wanted, because it was going to be done in tilt-up construction, which is a very typical type of construction in our area, in the warehouses of Doral, and it was economical enough to be able to work easily. We knew we had the ability to imprint onto the concrete a pattern. So one day, I mean, this is literally a photograph of my office. I didn't put that image of Guadalupe there. That image, when I got the job in 2012, was there. And it's not the normal image of Guadalupe. When you see the normal image of Guadalupe, it usually looks like that. And when you see that, it's beautiful, the colors, the copper, but you don't see the intricacies of this. So as I'm working with the architect and we're designing the building and we're talking about what we're going to do on the wall, he wanted to do, because we knew the roses, the Castilian roses, we knew there'd be flowers on it. He wanted to do like an abstract painting. Literally one day I'm going to use the restroom. That's the door to my office. And I'm just walking, I literally walked back and forth across this image. I stopped and I saw, the version we have is like a black and white. So the pattern is so clear. And I just go, that's the image. That's what we're going to put on the walls. And so I called him and I said, listen, because you don't usually see it. He hadn't really picked up on it in the colored image. But this black and white replica, or monochromatic replica, it stands out a lot. I thought it was cool. I thought it was like an Ed Hardy pattern. I like it. It'll be cool. It'll be nice. It'll tie to it. But I didn't know what it meant. So God, again, the journey, he's revealing to me slowly, just through aesthetics, through beauty. I'm starting to be attracted to and to learn more about God. Yeah.
What was the winning architect?
Is Ziskovich Architects, back there, Stratus now, and they were part. I call him Ziskovich. Ziskovich. But Ziskovich is Jewish. He didn't do the project. The person who did the project is Jose Murguido. Jose Murguido is very Catholic, very humble, and he's the one that took the project and did it. He was his partner, but yeah.
We have Jewish roots anyway.
Well, yeah, it's all the same tree. We're all on the same tree. But no, but I mean, let me tell you, people take that very seriously. You hired a Jewish person to do a church? No, I didn't hire. The name is that, but it's Jose who did it. But literally, so I first fell in love with the pattern that we did in the building, but I didn't think of anything about it until one day, literally, again, God at work. I'm in my office. That's my water cooler. That's the microwave. I stick my little sandwich every day. That door doesn't belong to me. That door belongs to Katie, who's head of development. She does all the financial raising of funds. So they store all of their materials in there. One day, I'm literally grabbing a glass of water, and the door is left ajar. It's never ajar. It's always locked because they keep materials in there. So curious me, I open the door. I just push it. I go to see what's inside, and I kid you not, this book is sitting on a table right behind the table right behind that door, and it was like facing me like this iPad. And I just discovered the beautiful patterns of this image, and I call Katie. I go, Katie, there's a book about Guadalupe in your office. Can I borrow it? She goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a book of Guadalupe in my office, in my storage. I go, this is literally, and I sent her a picture. She goes, maybe a donor gave it to me. Take it. You want it? So I take it. All right. So I take the book. As I open the book, what it is, it's the explanation of what every symbol is. The symbols throughout the pattern are all a code. I didn't know this. So in 1531, when this image appears on the tilma of Juan Diego, all the natives who had their whole lives of faith into the gods and the Aztecs and the human sacrifices, they had just been destroyed by the Spanish Armada. They had no idea that they were down. They were destroyed internally. They didn't have any. Their faith had been destroyed by the reality of the true God. And it wasn't until they see the image of her that they realize that the true God came from that woman. They didn't maybe know who she was at the time. And the reason they knew it is because they saw this symbol. If you look in all of her dress, the patterns repeat themselves in her dress multiple times. You'll see this pattern, that pattern. They're all over. And there's like an 8-petal, but there's only one 4-petal jasmine that appears on the entire image of Guadalupe. And that 4-petal jasmine is exactly right here, right on her womb. So she's encinta, as you all know. She has her black, that the term encinta in Spanish means a woman is pregnant. So anybody who looked at that image knew that that woman was pregnant. But when the indigenous people saw the 4-petal jasmine, they understood in their idea of what faith was and God's, there was one true God who had set the world in motion like a clockmaker, let all the gods run rampant, and just forgot about us. And that God was symbolized by the 4-petal jasmine because of its perfection, the circle with the 4 smaller circles. And so when they saw that in her womb, and her womb is, of course, what is eclipsing the sun, their biggest panic was when there was an eclipse. Because if there's an eclipse, the moon is beating the sun, and the harvest is at risk. So that's when the human sacrifices started. They could, like Father Llorente would say, they could cut the neck, take the heart, throw the body within seconds. And they would just, you saw the movie, the Mel Gibson movie, just human sacrifice, human sacrifice. So the eclipse, the real God that eclipses the sun, is what's in her womb. So they realize, okay, what's in her womb is the true God, because that's being eclipsed by it, the sun is being eclipsed by it. And she is, of course, standing on the moon, dominating it. So the moon will never overtake the true God that's in her womb. So that image was revolutionary, and the conversions were, beyond count. Interestingly, the Reformation was happening. So all that was being lost in the old world was being gained in conversions of the new world. Kind of interestingly, and I like to see it, where was Ignatius? Ignatius was in a couple years later in the 1500s. All this is happening concurrently in the New World and the Old World. So we come back to the project, and you asked Ziskovich, Jose Muguido's design, what really got the committee when we saw this was, number one, all the other submittals had a building and a parking lot, a sea of parking and a building. This axis into the cemetery, which is a journey from life to death to the cemetery to burial, that engagement of the parking lot became instrumental. It was just like, wait a second, this is incredible. And then we're looking at the shape of the building, and we go, what is this egg? And Jose Muguido just completely inspired. He's like, the whole Guadalupe image is about the womb. It's about the egg. It's about the child. So the most precious item will be in here, like the Blessed Sacrament exposed 24 hours will be at the heart of the womb of the project. When we saw that, it was just like, it would have been easier to pick other candidates, but this design was so clearly the winner that, the whole committee was unanimous. The church itself, we defined the program, it had all the basic essential components. We knew it would be a crucigram, it would be a Latin cross, but not so traditionally Latin cross. But a lot of people, and I'm going to show you, a lot of people look at this and say, oh, this is a modern building, I don't like modern buildings, churches should all be. But you'll see that the inspirations actually come from the tradition, the basilica. So this is 2012. I mean, the firm's ability at technology was incredible. They were at the cutting edge. We had these renderings drawn up. We had all of the different, angles, views. I remember the first meeting, we were able to just, pull the building up and down, gain height, compress it. I kept saying, make it bigger, and they're like, then the contractor would be like, what, no, down, no, up. So it was a constant struggle between design and construction. The constructor knows it's going to cost money, but the designer knows it's going to be an amazing building, and then the contractor, Ruben Bravo, who was he just fell in love with it. He understood that what we were doing was beyond our time. So the design evolved very quickly because, as Father said, we had to get the permits. We knew December 12th was her feast day, 2015. We wanted to be ready for that. But we didn't get our permit. It was actually issued December 12th of 2014. So it was like, I mean, that the Virgin could put her stamp on it, like putting me here today on the day of the Juan Diego. I mean, it was so obvious this project was being blessed by our Blessed Mother. Was very clear. And it was to the contractor's detriment, because to get a permit December 12th, guess what? Nobody's working all of December. So he really had to build the building, like Father said. It wasn't 12 months. The permit was 12 months, but he had to work in 11th because he couldn't start till January. So the building we knew, like as I mentioned to you, would be tilt up. So that's what you see when you pour the panels on the floor and you lift them up. And it's a quick method of construction. And it gives you the ability to imprint into it. That was really critical to the success of the project. But I thought this picture was great, but it was literally, they were pouring the panels, and when you do tilt up, you want to do flat, but here we have the egg. How do you do an egg in concrete when it should be flat? This contractor was all in. Look at the formwork. The formwork is all curved, and not only that, but look at the hour of the pour of concrete. They were already pouring at 6 a.m. So in order to make this work, we had to pour concrete because traffic, just different factors, and the temperature. We would pour concrete between 4 and 7 in the morning was the key time in order to meet the deadline. And then the other issue was it was a complex project because we didn't have any access. There's a canal. There's literally a moat around the entire project. That little bridge was just a service entrance. We had to build 2 full bridges. So when I tell you the budget at the end, you're not going to believe it, that we could build all of this construction over 30,000 square feet plus 2 bridges. It's just pretty fantastic. But again, you begin to see the formwork coming out, and then everybody gets excited as they see the formwork. But again, the positioning of the building to the turnpike, we knew that facade would have such an impact and influence so many people. I would think of the migrant workers going down to Homestead to pick fruit. They're all going to drive up and down this highway, and the thought that somebody who's at the point of desperation, desolation, somebody who's thinking suicide, the ability that this building, just by seeing this image of Guadalupe, could influence somebody was very powerful for the team. But going back to influences, it's a modern building. You guys have seen it. But if you look at it, it's not that much different than St. Mary Major in Rome. It's the basilica. The basilica form when Constantine made Catholicism, Christianity the official religion, they didn't make all new architecture. They took the Roman basilica, which is basically where they would have their markets, and this is it over here. It had 2 aisles on the side where you have the vendors, and it had a high center. And they converted that into the form of a church. So this is St. Mary Major. I was blessed to be there for the Jubilee. And I go, you'll see the photo of Guadalupe, but if you look at that section, there's a cross section up there, and you look at this cross section, there is a community, there is a common language. But we live in a different time. As Emilio would say, we live at a different time. Art is influenced by when you are, but you hold on to the core elements. And so we held on to the core elements of the basilica. And then we knew we also wanted to have some art that would be very powerful. And Guadalupe is a 2-dimensional piece of art. As you know, it's an image that was put onto the tilma. We knew we wanted to have, because in the design of that spine into the cemetery, that we knew that would be anchored by the image of Guadalupe, but 3-dimensionally. So we had a competition. Again, I invited different local artists to come. I had never met Nilda before. Nilda works out of Fort Lauderdale. And I was looking around asking for references. and they gave me her name. And so I sent her an invitation. I had put together a program. You have to submit a model. You will have a jury. We will then review your models, and whoever gets it, gets it. And I went to a bronze foundry here in Doral because I thought this would be a bronze virgin. I thought the image that we put would be bronze. And I met her there. She's one of the few artists that still works in the classic style in Pietrasanta, in where the Medicis got their marble, and Michelangelo would put the M for the Medicis. That's where she works. And I saw her at the foundry here, and I said, hey, were you going to be able to enter the competition? And she goes, hey, David, it's nice to meet you, but I can't. I do half a year here, and I do half a year in Italy, and I leave next week, and I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to, enter the competition. I go, no problem. It's nice to meet you. Maybe next time you can, I'll invite you again. The next day, so I left, she left. The next morning, I get a call, and she goes, David, I drove home from the studio, and I could not stop thinking about it, and I worked all night on that's the little clay model, and she goes, I would like to turn it in. I'm going to leave for Italy. If that's okay, I'll turn it in. My daughter will be here, and if it's okay, I said, so I'm getting goosebumps, and I'm like, sure, yeah, bring it in. She brings in the sculptural model. Father Mago's with me, the architect's with me, and we're just like, wow. We said, yeah, we accept it. We took it. We had the competition. Everybody else submitted it. No, just wasn't the right. It's just like the design. It wasn't the right one. This was the right one. She got the commission, and she said, look, all I need you to do is pay for my cost of living and pay for the marble, but I'm going to do this for free. This is this is me for the Virgin. She went to Pietrasanta, where the Medicis get their marble. She called and said, usually you have to put your order in for a piece of marble big enough, and for a marble that is qualified for sculpture. I go, what are you talking about? Like, isn't it just like Carrara? You just buy it for your bathroom? She goes, no. She goes, they get the piece. If it's the right size, they take it, they lift it, and they drop it to see if it breaks. Because if it breaks, it's no good, obviously. Then it becomes tile for your bathroom. But if it's good enough and it holds, because the last thing you want is to dedicate all your time to start sculpting and then, bonk, and it breaks, right? If it has any loose veins in it, it's no good. She goes, David, I don't know how this happened. You usually have to wait a long time, but there is a piece the right size that's been tested, and it works. You guys pay for it, and just pay my cost of living and my food, and I'm going to do this thing for free. She did it, and she tells the story now. This image, she sent it to me. This was she didn't realize this was probably April, and we had to be ready in December. A la locura. She goes, yeah, I'll do it. She didn't realize that the loss of time with daylight savings when she started the project. But she says she couldn't explain it, but every afternoon when the last of the sunlight, the whole studio, and you have to do this, you can't do it with artificial lights. You have to do it with natural sunlight in Italy. She says every afternoon it was just in the right location, that one beam of light that you see in this photograph, and she could work that extra hour. Like, it was just things that Father Mago and I talk about having to figure, write down. And then here we had it shipped. Shipping was another problem. She said, I can ship it, but I have no control to get it out of customs. She goes, these things can be in customs a month, or it could be in there 3 months. So she goes, David, can you get it out of customs? I'm like, I'm an architect. I don't do customs. So I'm like, all right, God help me. So I start making phone calls, and I call one gentleman that's referred to me. He's a broker, blah, blah, blah. I call him, hey, I'm looking to get something out of customs. It's a piece of marble. He goes, what, is it building materials? I go, it's kind of, it's a statue. He goes, okay, yeah, we could do it. It's going to probably take a couple of weeks. And we had timed it so that it shipped October 3rd. It shipped on Halloween, so it arrived on Thanksgiving, and it would be installed December 12th. Like, there was no room for error. So if it arrives on Thanksgiving, I got to get it out of customs quick enough by December 12th, it's ready to go. And so I tell this gentleman, he goes, that's going to be tight. I mean, Thanksgiving to December. He goes, what's it for? I go, well, it's a church, Our Lady Guadalupe. He goes, what? No, it's Our Lady Guadalupe. He goes, no, wait a second. He goes, my parents are like founding members there. Like, I got this. Free of charge. I'm going to get the sculpture out. He got it out within 2 days. Like, and I'm like, this is the guy that some guy referred to me that I just called, like, talk about being a conduit, like, because I had no idea that it could be done. It got done, it got installed, and that's what it looks like. But in addition, Nilda, her love for Guadalupe, she has also done additional work. If you go to Guadalupe now, for those of you that went on that pilgrimage, this is there, which is dedicated to the unborn. It's a beautiful sculpture of Our Lady Guadalupe actually holding a baby, which you never see. And then this piece of art, again, the adventures that God puts you on. In Italy, they have the exact replicas of all of Michelangelo's work. So if a terrorist were to bomb the Vatican, God forbid, and the Pietà was destroyed, there is an exact model replica so the Italian government can create another one. So the studio she works in has that model. She had a patron in Fort Lauderdale, a very rich attorney, and he went to visit her. He was one of her big patrons. And he went to visit and saw the model on the shelf, the real model. And he goes, he's a very affluent man. He says, is it possible for me to get one? Can I get a Pietà? I've always wanted it. My parents took me to Italy when I was a kid. And she goes, I don't know. That's like the Italian government. She talks to the studio owner. The guy says, the price is right. Italians, yeah, the precio. They got the right price. He paid the right price. They created, Nilda and a team used the replica model and created a marble Pietà to the exact millimeter of Michelangelo's. When I opened the front door to this guy's house, because they asked me to move it, I'm standing in his front door. So literally you open this front door and behind it is the beautiful ocean. My challenge was, how do I get it out of the house? Because they were going to sell the house and maybe a Muslim was going to buy it and or a Jewish person, nobody wants that in their front door. But literally, if you go to Guadalupe today, if you haven't been, go. You can actually get up to, please don't touch it. People walk by it, I'm like, they don't realize that they're walking by basically the exact Michelangelo sculpture that you have to stand 50 feet away in Rome. In addition to that, she did the corpus. So the corpus on the wall, on the Reredos wall, we were going to order a crucifix, and I tell Nilda, Nilda she's echada pa'lante, she goes for it. I told her, we're going to do a corpus. She goes, oh, can I do it? I go, okay, you're doing the Virgin. How are you going to get this done? And this one, it's going to be a bronze. She goes, no, I'll figure it out, because what I'll do is I'll work during the day on the marble, and at night I'll do styrofoam. I'll do the corpus in styrofoam. I'll ship it FedEx, so when I get on the plane, the body gets on the plane. We both arrive. She was coming back. It was shipped, so at the beginning of October. I'll be there, and I can get it done in a month. We unpacked the styrofoam, and that's in the heart of Hialeah, because they've now moved to Doral, but at the time here, they were in Hialeah. They were fueled by Cuban coffee. We got the entire corpus done and shipped December 11th at 9 p.m. December 11th, and the dedication was December 12th. That image of the scaffolding, I took it, was December 11th. The dedication mass was December 12th at 10 a.m. This is December 11th at 10 p.m. So scaffolding like that, you cannot, like in your outside, you're painting, you just throw it. They had to erect the entire scaffold, was ready for it, pull up the corpus, hope that the holes for the bolts lined up with the holes in the wall, because it was measured, but you don't know until you actually do it. And it all just fell like perfect, like a glove. And so it was done on the day of. Father Mago has more gray hair, I have more gray hair. And this is the finished product. So the finished product is the church, again, the Basilica form. Very easy to get around. Again, that spine with the Stations of the Cross. Those Stations of the Cross, we were able to get from a church that closed in the Northeast. One of the things is my time at the Archdiocese, I was asked to serve as president of the CFM, which is the Conference of Catholic Facility Managers like myself from all around the country. So for 7 years, I was the president there, and I got to meet my equivalent in other dioceses. And I would tell them, we're growing, and they'd be like, we're shrinking. Like, we're closing churches. We're selling all our artwork. I go, give it here. We're doing a new church. I said, I need Stations of the Cross. These were all inside a beautiful 19th century church, 1800s, in Philadelphia. And they shipped them to us. and if you haven't been, go. The level of detail is you wouldn't expect it on an outside of a church. It's incredible. And then Father Mago wanted to honor all of the virgins of all the different countries, so we did that on each of those. Then, of course, the image of Guadalupe. So there was a lot of discussion about what would be facing the turnpike, and at the end of the day, it was a simple answer. It's going to be her. Like, well, could it be this? Could it be Juan Diego opening the thing? No, it's just going to be her, because that idea of who's traveling down the turnpike, you just have to have the icon like of the powerful image, and it's changed so many lives. So we did that image, and we ordered a mosaic from Italy. Literally arrives like this. There's never a straight line, because you can never see the joint in a mosaic. This is an Italian-made mosaic, so you never have a straight line. Here's the artist. You can see his scale. You can see how big it is. And then it comes in little pieces. It comes in pieces this big. And if you like puzzles, that'd be the job for you. Like, it'd be a great job for you. I told my wife that would be great for her. And it's literally made up of these little pieces of marble with real gold inlay. So when you see, in the sunset, because it faces west, it's gorgeous. Yeah. Yes. Se ve la imagen. So it's on the west wall facing the turnpike, and you can see it from the. And then the other thing, what Father said, you can see it from the airplane, because we're on the flight path. So whenever I fly out, I always look if I'm on the right side, if I'm on the lucky side of the plane. But we purposely made the church so it looks like a cruciform from the sky with no equipment. There's no air conditioners, because we wanted it to just be a cross. And then the interior, again, you see the threads and the tie to history of a basilica. The lower roofs, the higher volume, but we can avoid the columns because we have technology that they didn't have back then. So the old church would have had columns going down, but we have the wide expanse. The original church was going to have rectilinear pews, and the altar was rectilinear on that first plan. I didn't point it out, but we ended up, it was too square, and we wanted the femininity of what Our Lady represents, and the womb and the roundness. So we changed to round pews, curved pews, and it's also better because everyone's facing the most important, everything radiates from the center of the altar. And nobody has to, if you go to a rectilinear church, someone's cocking their head because they're sitting at the end of the pew, whereas a radial pew, everyone is just facing straight. And then the reredos wall, for those of you, this is a reredos, is the wall behind the altar. We wanted it to have a language of Guadalupe. So this is, you see Father Mago here celebrating Mass in the Basilica in Mexico City. So we were able to capture, you don't copy, but you take the essence. So the concept, we brought it over to a modern millwork, same type of thing in your kitchen. It's a millwork wall. And we got the image of Guadalupe, and Father was mentioning our image was unrolled, right? They got behind, this is the image that's actually the actual cactus tilma is here protected now because they almost tried to destroy it and they couldn't. But our image was unrolled and touched that relic, that beautiful relic. So it's a sacred spot in the church. And then a little Easter egg for those of you that go to Guadalupe. Nobody knows this. But remember the full circle, the 4-petal jasmine. As we were in, Father Mago and I went to Italy. It was I had to sacrifice myself, go to Italy to see the marble, make sure the marble was good and all that. So him and I were and we're leaving, and I was looking at the marble for the main altar, and then we're like, oh, where's the altar? Where's the marble for where the Blessed Sacrament is exposed? And the guy says, oh, it's just a regular piece of marble. It's just a flat. There was nothing to it. And the Holy Spirit inspired me. I go, you know what? Let's put something on it. And literally, it was like the definition of a napkin sketch. I drew it because it's so simple. I go, we want a circle with the 4 circles of 4-petal jasmine, because that image happens on one part of the image of Guadalupe, and I want that image to appear in one part of this church where the Blessed Sacrament is always exposed. So the spot of the church that is the most sacred in that it's always with the presence of Christ is marked by the 4-petal jasmine. I think millions of people come to this chapel. I don't know that people even notice it. Nobody knows that this is probably day. And then with that said, with all that mumbo jumbo about architecture, the most important thing is this. The most important thing is the church is just a building. It's nothing without the people, the living stones, which are the people. And this is Archbishop with a confirmation. And, you know, it's kind of full circle for me because I teach confirmation. Just seeing the life of the church when we are born, when we die, when we are adults, that's what this building is all about, is seeing that and seeing it in action. Just the most beautiful thing. And then the image from the highway. And then to close, I think what I wanted to share was the greatest lesson that my mom ever taught me. So my mom, as she was getting sick, she talked to me and she told me, you know what, David? When I told her I was going to Mexico, she smiled at me and she goes, okay. Like she knew something was going on. And she wrestled with God. She struggled a lot when she was younger. And she knew something was happening. And she told me the story before she died, which is that she and my dad would travel on business. They went to Mexico and she saw this. Here's a woman with her child going on pilgrimage with their baby to offer the baby to Guadalupe. And she remembers like being so impressed with that she looked at the image of Guadalupe and said, I don't have anything to offer you. Like, she goes, and you know, we were all younger. She said, I offer you my baby. I'm the youngest of the three. She goes, I offer you David. You know, because she felt so impressed by seeing these mothers. And then she shared with me a story that when we were three young boys and she was with us at St. Brendan, she saw an image of the Pietà, and she looked at the Blessed Mother and said, I could never ask anything of you. Like, you gave your only son. And she had, you know, three little munchkins, us three, and, you know, she could feel what that suffering to lose a child would be like. And she just said, I can't ask anything of you ever. And then she told me when she lost my brother and she suffered and struggled and wrestled with God, that years later, and this is what just blew me away, she told me, David, what I understood years later is that what I experienced was a privilege. And I thought at first, I confused it. I thought she said it's a gift. It's not a gift. She said, what I experienced was a privilege. Because the Virgin Mary granted to me an experience that not many women have, which is the loss of a child, of a son. And she said, it gives me God bumps now, like, she got to the point in her journey where she realized that what she experienced was a privilege. And so the lesson that I learned is that when I was in the hospital, any suffering, when you look at through the eyes of God, with the thread of God, it's a privilege. Because at the end of the day, it's united to Christ's suffering. And so when she saw me, and so she had that experience in that with my brother, and then when she saw later on in life me as an adult man working for the church and then going to Mexico to Guadalupe and doing these, it all came full circle for her. And for me, like for her and me and her at the end, to understand that she was basically handing me off to Guadalupe, to Our Lady. And so ultimately, and then at her funeral, it's just, you know, Father was there. We had all the priests, you know, all the people that she impacted, that impacted me, that are friends of mine. It was just a very powerful moment and a very full circle moment for me, you know, in the place I am in my life right now. So all because of, and all routed and rooted in the agrupación, right? It all starts with learning, because Llorente would say that, how many times he would go to a funeral of an agrupado who lost a child, and that agrupado ended up preaching to him, teaching him about the meaning of suffering and the value of suffering. So with that said, that's it. That's all she wrote. Well, this is I sometimes give the talk to kids, so this is something about, this came out of the book that Marty mentioned, The Shepherd of My Design. It's just basically The Shepherd of My Soul. It's basically a poem about how a rosebud in a human hand can't unfold a rosebud. God can beautifully unfold a rosebud. If you read the poem, what it basically says is, how can I, if I can't even do a rosebud, think that I can unfold my life? it's God who we have to let unfold our lives. So, all right. Thank you. Any questions? Questions? Yeah.
Quick comment. If I'm not mistaken, this has become the biggest parish in Florida.
Yeah, they're moving to try to make it a shrine, like a national shrine now. Yeah.
I mean, in size of
But
building, but in number of families.
right, no, yeah, no, and pilgrimages, the people that come. I mean, the devotion to Guadalupe. If you guys haven't been to Mexico City to the Basilica, put it on your bucket list and move it up the bucket list because it's very powerful and very safe. I'm still here, so yeah.
You were in Mexico
Yeah.
and you saw the crucifix.
Which one?
The one.
Oh yeah, the explosion. Yeah, of course. And yeah. Right in front of it, right in front of the when they put the bomb. Capilla, yeah, and the image was fine. Yeah.
But not even scratch
Right.
on the building.
I mean, the image itself. I don't know if you all know the story. If you don't know the story of Guadalupe, I didn't tell it at all. How Juan Diego experienced. She basically tells Juan Diego, I want you to tell the bishop I want my church built here. So I love it because the Virgin is a builder. So I could totally relate to the Virgin. She built, everywhere she goes, she builds. She says, tell him I want it built here. And Juan Diego's like, me? And that's how I felt. Like, David, we're going to build this church. I'm like, me? Okay.
You went to see the bishop 3 times.
Yes. And he got turned away. Yeah, the guy. Yeah, there's a whole story behind it. Yeah. Until he said, I want a sign. Give me a sign. And then Juan Diego, in his innocence, goes, because his uncle is sick. And he goes, well, I don't want to go down this path because I'll see the Virgin. I'm going to go down this path so I can avoid her because I got to get a doctor. No, I got to get a priest for my uncle because the uncle said, I'm dying. I need a priest to come give him the last rites. So the Virgin, of course, knows where he's going. And she goes, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, he's sick. She goes, and that's where the quote, no estoy yo aquí que soy tu madre. That's the quote that's on top of the door. She goes, Juan Dieguito, like she just a cariño. Juan Dieguito, no estoy aquí que soy tu madre. I'm your mother. Don't worry about it. I got you covered. And so she do what I said. Like, I got your uncle. And the uncle got healed. Yeah. So yeah.
What was the connection with the Slim family other than that?
Okay, good question. So Patricio Slim has an incredible devotion to Guadalupe, Our Lady Guadalupe, because his mother, Carlos Slim's wife, got very ill. Patricio is Carlos's son, yes. So he basically saw his mother suffer a lot too, and the devotion she had to Guadalupe, he inherited. And literally, when I was at a meeting with that guy, for one of the first meetings, we were talking business and budgets and this, and 3 o'clock came, and he goes, excuse me, do you mind if we take a break and do the Divine Chaplet? And we're all like, we're in a business meeting. He's like, oh yeah, of course, we all prayed the Divine Chaplet. A man of such spiritual depth. I saw him at the dedication. He came for the dedication. Oh, another Easter egg. If you go to the church and you look at the stained glass window, now there's a lot of them, but we only had 2 originally. The one that has Juan Diego exposing the flowers, the bishop in the image is Wensky, it's his face, and Patricio is the monk in the back right. He's bald, and he's standing right behind, but we were able to capture their faces and put them on the stained glass to honor them, like in the tradition of the old churches. Yeah.
En algún momento de la presentación mencionaste
Sí.
cuando nos dijeras lo del pollo nos íbamos a quedar, pero no mencionaste.
Okay, budget. So, originally, como te dije, the parish has to have the money for its church. Guadalupe struggled and raised $3 million. So, we started a project for $3 million, which was 300 people, like a small church. Guadalupe, well, because of Father Mago, made a contact in a retreat with Patricio Slim. They talked, and he said about the project, and Patricio said, oh, I'm interested. But very interesting, I learned something when I would go to the meetings. Patricio, you had to have skin in the game. Patricio ended up giving $9 million, and the parish put $3 million, so it was a $12 million budget, which, for what I showed you, which is 1,000-person church, the chapel, the meeting room, folding partitions, 2 bridges, All the parking, $12 million. As an aside, I had this because I just, in 2017, this is another presentation I give. I rebuilt St. Peter's in Big Pine Key. 250, it's a beautiful architectural gem. 250 person church, tiny hall, and this parking lot. $12 million. I know, but it's $12 million. But it's $12 million. I mean, and it's a fraction of this. So what we got done, when we got it done, oh, and then as an architect for the builders and back here, my job often is fighting for the church's money, right? I'm a steward of the money of the church. So contractors want to give a change order, and I go to battle. Not one change order. Not one battle. It was blessed. I mean, I would go to the meetings. We had what they call an OAC, owner, architect, contractor. So I go as the owner, representing the owner. Generally, they get heated because there's, well, it's the beauty of a design build, because in construction, traditionally, I'm the owner, I'm the archdiocese, I hire architect, I hire the contractor. You give him your plans, he goes, and then he's gonna start pointing out, Manny forgot this, Manny forgot that, I need a change order. So then you're going, no, it's in the spec, so it becomes this, right? It's like Adam and Eve, it becomes this, and then I have to go in the middle and find out where the truth is. In design build, they can't do that because the architect is working for the contractor, but it doesn't work on every project because because then they could do crappy work too. So it has to be, you have to have a certain level of experience to do it. But yeah, so it's a $12 million budget. And we got all that. That's like 30,000 square feet. Yeah, no. And like Father said, 11 months. Yeah.
I guess it's important to mention that there are a few days left.
Yes, for the Jubilee.
We haven't done it.
Yeah, and Guadalupe does every Saturday. Yeah, they do a tour. Like they have a very well set up system.
When is it that the Jubilee year ends?
I think it's calendar year. It's calendar year. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a few years that the Jubilee year.
It's not calendar year.
January something.
Oh, okay. It goes beyond January 1. I didn't know. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's right there.
So now's the time, guys. If you have done.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. No. Yeah.